Hi everyone. One of the questions I think that most people are asking themselves and others, and the media are certainly endeavouring to push as hard as they can, and particularly Sky News, is whether Albo at this particular point should get on with it, whatever it may be, as confusing as that in itself may appear. And it's interesting to note that Sky News particularly are slamming Albanese for his focus on ScoMo's conduct while as Prime Minister and the many ministries that ScoMo was able to accumulate. It was kind of like accumulating ministries like one would collecting cards, that he found that he couldn't have enough of whatever it was that he was after, which is probably power. So here the right wing is particularly up in arms about this particular focus. But one of the things that I've noticed is that when Albo has a press conference and there is a conversation around what Scott Morrison did, that it is the media who insist on asking him an array of questions to seek clarification as to where the government is going to go around this particular issue. And it seems to be more and more evident that the issue primarily is around transparency and whether it is possible within the Westminster system, our system of government, to have a Prime Minister who can basically become autocratic, that they can take over as many ministries as they like, they can govern as an autocracy, that they don't need to consult or have anybody push back against them. They can simply do their own thing, apparently, and that's one of the key issues here, and that's the gap that I think is the government's focus in order to change some of that. Now, the other issue that's come to light is in relation to robo-debt. So on one hand, we've got a kind of inquiry into Morrison's behaviour, and then we've got robo-debt, which happened about 5 or 6 years ago, whereby the government chose in their wisdom they would have an automated system that would compare incomes over a period of time and amount of Centrelink payments pardon me, that had been paid to these people. And there were people that, as a result of that, found that they believed they didn't have a debt. They were told they had a debt. Some of them had their taxation refunds garnished and lost money as a result, even though they themselves didn't have a debt. And some people suicided, which is horrific, and others suffered from mental well-being conditions and depression and anxiety and a whole host of other issues. And that the government itself has never been held accountable. There was a class action, some $120 million was paid out, I think, but at the end of the day, the government hasn't directly taken responsibility for what they did. Albo's going to change all of that, so we're told. So I think this is appropriate, as there were so many people that were harmed by the robo-debt fiasco. So hopefully they will, appropriate conclusion will come to, an arrangement will come to, that so that this sort of stuff never happens again. I think what is important is that each of these instances, whether it be appointing yourself to be a minister for a whole host of portfolios, to trying to get money from people, normally the most disadvantaged people in our community, and whether or not those systems are appropriate within our form of government. And certainly we need to find ways to make sure that all governments, no matter what of their persuasion, that they're accountable for what it is that they do or do not do. Now, one of the persons who I find the most offensive is actually this guy. So this is, we all know who he is. This is none other than Paul Murray. Now, I find Paul an embarrassment, because it is there is nothing fair about what he does. There is nothing that, like, I don't mind showing my biases. And, I'm not going to criticise him, I guess, directly for showing his biases. But, I'm a YouTuber who has 56 subscribers. It's no big deal for me. He is a media personality that has thousands, not all that many, because it's on Sky News and they don't have a wide-ranging audience. And I only pick him up on YouTube just so I can have an occasional laugh. But here he is talking about, so they're talking about continual criticism of Albanese. Now, it took 1 week before Andrew Bolt decided to have a go at Albanese for not doing enough. So this is their continual theme now, is that Albanese, after 3 months, isn't doing enough. There's too much happening around this ScoMo thing. So they must have a shot at him every night, and every night they do. Now, I don't know what it is that they're trying to convince us of, because it's years away from the next election, and it is as if, it just strikes me that they believe that Albanese can't do two things at the same time. So he can't have conversations around ScoMo, and now it'll be robo-debt, I can assure you. But he can't have a conversation about this stuff and the government be doing its other stuff in the background. So, health can't be doing the stuff around health. That the other departments, whatever they might be, housing, infrastructure, whatever, can't do their stuff around that. Social Security can't do whatever it is they do around improving Social Security and outcomes for our citizens. So it's almost like if Albo's talking about ScoMo and his many portfolios, the government goes on halt. So they can't do anything. They're just sitting there waiting for Albo to finish his conversations around Morrison, and then they kick back into gear. And so it fascinates me the focus that they have on the fact that Albo can't be doing two things, or his government can't be doing two or multiple things at the same time. So I just play a little bit, just this introduction for Murray, because it kind of entertains me, and there's a good chance it might entertain you as well.
I recall a certain phrase being used over and over and over and over and over and over and over again by the people who were made the government of this country more than 3 months ago.
Dealing with the cost of living. But the cost of living increases aimed at easing those cost of living pressures.
The cost of everything is going up, but your pay isn't.
Inflation is much higher than the cost of living.
It's just too hard to get by. The cost of living, everything's going up.
The cost of living, off the cost of living. The impact on cost of living. Addressing cost of living issues, there is a cost of living crisis in this country.
And of course, the media did its bit by echoing his talking point, that this was one of the key fulcrums for Australia to make its decision. It even made international news on the BBC. But
Okay, so that's all we need to hear from Paul Murray, carrying on about the cost of living. Well, the cost of living is an issue. We all know that. But I don't know whether Paul ever buys petrol, because I think I can remember some months ago, before the election, petrol was about $2 a litre. Now, yesterday when I was out and about, I noticed that it was down to $1.45. Now, I'm waiting for that moment where Paul Murray and his clan say, well, isn't it interesting that the cost of petrol has decreased? Simply the government must be doing more than just talking about ScoMo and his portfolios. They must... How did that happen? Like, who is responsible for it? So if anything happens that's positive right now, I can assure you it was because of the Liberal Party policies that came before the election, not necessarily anything that's happening now, or not even because there's some international trend that's changing all of this stuff as well, like Ukraine, oil prices changing because of maybe they're pumping out more barrels of oil at the moment. Maybe they've negotiated with the OECD countries and the oil producers. I don't know. But I can guarantee you that one person who's not going to get celebrated around any of this would be Anthony Albanese and his government, because the right wing are so entrenched in seeing only the negative that when something positive happens, they just ignore it entirely. They're a bloody embarrassment. And we've got a whole host of these people, whether it be Kelly, Murray, Andrew Bolt, and then there's a whole team of them that get together and just laugh about particularly American politics. As it turns out, they're rather fascinated with that. So I think that we need to be really mindful of the fact that the right wing is going to paint a negative picture of whatever it is that the Labor Party do. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment that everything the Labor Party do I will agree with either. And if I disagree, I'll talk to you about it here on my channel. But at the moment, they've been in there for 3 months. Give them a break. And let's see what happens over time. And normally a good time to tell the progress that's being made by government is 12 months. Governments do not have a magic wand. They can't in the first day, as the right wing would expect, to wave this wand and all our ills just vanish from our sight. That is not the way that it happens. Yet, this is what the right wing, particularly Sky News, believe should be. So I just want to say to everybody, if you're watching me at the moment, and you should be watching me on YouTube, I guess, could you please subscribe? Really love to have you on board, and ring the bell so you can get any future notifications. Okay, thanks everybody. Thanks for being with me. Take care and look after yourselves and be safe.